Welcome back, you lovely marvels. Hi, Dana. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
I'm great. I am great today. Thank you so much. We are about to talk about one of our favorite topics, and it's not Diet Coke.
And probably a lot of other people's favorite topic, because we know that neurodiverse people love Diet Coke, but also animals.
Animals. Yeah. Oh my gosh. My animal is napping, but I don't think he'd mind. He does help me out in therapy. He's lovely.
Oh, awesome. Oh, he's going to be all nappy. That's awesome.
I mean,
oh my God, he's so cute.
Look at this. Look at this little. So for those of you, this is Stanley, the Springer Spaniel.
He's so tired.
His look at his name is Stanley. Would you like to know why we named our dog Stanley?
Yes, please.
Well, for two reasons. First of all, Stanley Cup, Lord Stanley.
Oh yes,
because of our Canadian heritage.
Awesome. Yeah.
But Stanley.
Oh my God! See, perfect.
So we're so, look at how smart we are.
Look at his face. He's like, oh God, Mom's telling everybody about my name again.
I know. Look at his thought bubble. I will say Stanley does help me out in therapy a lot. He often sits and is my co-pilot.
Oh my God, that look. That's hilarious.
Is his co-pilot, my co-pilot. And he often helps out in, he holds secrets. He understands confidentiality.
Yep.
But some of my clients are more comfortable talking to Stanley. They can tell him the hard stuff.
Yeah. When I had
he has lots of opinions.
Ella, little Maltipoo, she did co-therapy with me, and it was amazing. She would be sleeping in a dead sleep in her bed, and all of a sudden she'd pop up. She could tell when someone needed something, and she'd jump up on the couch with them. Yeah. They know.
Yeah. They know. So it's so lovely. But yes, the power of animals. And I mean, I think we would have a cat if some of my family members weren't so deathly allergic to them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's been a lot of research on just human-animal bond. I mean, in general, there's a giant, huge plethora of literature on that I know about from my past days as vet tech. But there is quite a bit of literature also on pets and neurodiverse folks in terms of what it does for us. And a lot of it is, I really do think that there's a non-worded connection that a lot of people can pick up with animals in general. But I have yet to meet a neurodiverse person who doesn't have that. Like they may say they have allergies, but I feel like I can connect with that animal in some ways. Horses, cats, dogs. I follow this one. It's a rescue, I think, on TikTok that rescues cows. And you think cows, they're the biggest snuggle bugs. They'll show them like in their giant heads in their lap, and they're petting them, and the cows like, they're like big puppies, So I do think that sense of, what's going on internally, I think that we have like this developed sixth sense to be able to pick up on those things that a lot of other people don't. Yeah. And animals tend to be just so, what's the word I'm looking for? They're unconditional, right? They just tend to be there for you. They can really pick up on mood states like we can, but they can't speak. And sometimes we can't speak when we've picked up on a mood state. We can't name it. And so there does tend to be some of that connection there that people talk about being really profound, right? That sense of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that unconditional love is so great. And, you and I have spoken about this as owning pets as a net positive.
Yeah. Because they're a lot of work.
Because they're a lot of work and they're a lot of money. If you want to, it's not, the initial purchase of your animal. I mean, if you do purchase your animal, that is
rescue.
Yeah, but
vet care. Yeah.
vet care, maintenance, food. I mean,
Yeah.
and then like for dogs, they like their routines, and so it's important to walk and do the
Yeah.
things that they need to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
meet,
think that's the
you
thing
know,
that when you're first starting that out, and your routine could change if you get an animal.
yeah,
That can be a real disruption to folks, and it takes a while to get into that routine. Not just for you to know the new routine, but for the animal to kind of get in sync with you. And
yeah,
if you've got a young animal, there's a lot of unpredictability. Housebreaking if you've got a dog, and climbing up the drapes if you get a kitty. I see these people, that one account had this baby cow in her house, and the house everything was white, and all I could think of is, oh my God, because cows can't control themselves, but maybe she had a little diaper on them, I don't know. But that kind of stuff can be like a shift to the environment when you first get one. And then, like when we lost our little dog, it was a shift to the environment. It was weird. We'll still talk
yeah,
about feeling her presence sometimes,
yeah.
but we just notice these little things that you don't notice every day. Like after she was gone, our dog we lost her to canine dementia. So it's like, doggy Alzheimer's, which was awful last year. But she liked to lay in her dog bed in the kitchen, but she could still see us in the family room. And how much we'd lean over to make sure she was still in there. We kept doing that for like weeks. It's like, oh my God, I'm still doing it. So you don't realize, I think sometimes, how connected you are until the animal isn't there or they're gone for some reason. And you realize all these like literal body movements that you make during the day, you're in sync with that animal, right? In addition to there being tons of research about how good they are for our mental health. That's been proven time and time again, that they lower anxiety, they help with depression, and they expand lifespans for humans. Humans tend to live longer that have pets.
Oh yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if Stanley is gone because maybe he's, we've been away and he's
Or at the
away,
groomer or something,
right, or whatever,
Yeah.
and I come home. It's all you're right, Dana, and I think that's what makes the loss of an animal so deep,
Yeah.
and like there's such a sting to it because it's all the little emotions in the day that remind you of them being gone.
Yeah.
And so, I think about my life, and I have really lived with some kind of animal for most of it. I
Yeah.
really haven't been without an animal for most of my life. And when I was a teen, I had a cat and a dog, many birds, and a lop-eared bunny and fish. We had a lot of animals. But I've always had a dog.
Yeah. Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Yeah.
I've always had a dog. And I will say most of my clients have cats.
Oh, okay.
And
give them a litter box and forget about them for a while. Yeah.
But they're hilarious. Like I feel like I saw this meme once, and it's like a dog. It said, "Oh, something along the lines of like, oh, you're feeding me. I love you so much. You're wonderful." And then and then the next picture, the next frame is like this owner feeding a cat, and like the cat's like, you better, like, okay, I'm your master, right?
Yeah.
It's about
my favorite one is dogs have owners, cats have staff. And that sort of sums it up right there, right? I mean, it really, yeah. Which is funny because cats get a little bit of a bad rap. I've had cats for many, many years. I don't anymore, and I've developed allergies to them, but I did have them. And they have personalities and like snuggliness to them, but it's just more subtle. Yeah. And I think you have to be someone that lives with the cat to really understand that. And even you mentioned fish. I had fish for a while. I'd come in the room and they'd come swimming to the front of the tank, and I'm like, oh my God, it's a fish, and they know I'm here. This is really weird. Yes. I had a rat once that I saved as a little teeny rat it was in a pet store. They were feeding it to this gigantic toad, and I rescued it. My sister's so funny. She's like, as soon as you leave, they're just going to put another baby rat in there, right? I'm like, yeah, but this one, I want to save this one.
Did you steal it, Dana?
No, I paid for it. I had him for like 7 years or so. Yeah, Nero, he was great. He was awesome. I put him in one of those little balls, and he'd run around the apartment. And Yeah, it's funny. My landlord would let me have 2 cats and a rat, but not a dog. So a lot of people can have cats because their apartments will let them have a cat, but not a
Yeah.
dog for some strange, bizarre reason. Um,
Yeah.
but like a lot of animal therapies have been done with horses, right? I mean, that was sort
Yep.
of the original animal therapy, working with handicapped kids and so on, disabled kids. Um, and then now there's tons of service dogs that like autistic folks get, right? They're doing a lot of training with dogs for folks that have combat trauma who haven't
Yep.
been able to leave the house and now can with service dogs. And so there really is this amazing bond. A little bit of history too. I mean, we see statues of pet cats in like Egyptian tombs and things like that. So we know they were around, but moreover, they were probably part of that culture where they were revered, right? Which is interesting. And dogs, I think I read an article a couple years ago that originally we thought that bond had forged between like wolves and people 20,000 years ago or so, and they found evidence that it was more like 40 or 50,000 years ago. So it goes back way further. And then there's studies too that will show that dogs understand a lot more human language than we thought before, right? And that dogs that we consider smart, I mean, there are some dogs that are smarter than others. I apologize to everybody who knows their dog is the smartest. But working breeds tend to be smarter. So like the stereotypical smartest dog is a border collie, right? These are the ones that know all those commands and do all the cool stuff with sheep and everything else. But they've done studies where they've taught names of toys to those dogs, and they can go retrieve the actual toy. And I think they approximate them at between a 2 and 3 year old child in terms of intelligence, right?
Yep.
But even then, I mean, dogs, they're around us all the time. Why wouldn't they learn some of our actual language when we're saying things and so on? They can pick up on that, right? And that cats may do that, but we've had cats domesticated a lot less time than we've domesticated dogs. So that's a little bit of the difference. And maybe some of the aloofness that cats have, they're literally not as domesticated as dogs are, right? And I love the memes that are like, or the videos on TikTok that'll come up, reasons my dog would never survive in the wild. And it's usually like this little teacup poodle that's got like the little coats I love doing that kind of stuff, but they're like, yeah, one day without food and they'd starve to death. But a cat, even a house cat, if it had to be outside, it probably could survive for a while. They're just a little more wild in that way. Probably get hit by a car, but would probably survive for a while because it wouldn't be street smart that way.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, there are these really profound bonds that people can form with animals, right? And then when you lose one, oh my God.
It's awful.
We haven't gotten another one yet. We lost Ella in 2019 because one of the main reasons we've waited so long is because it was so hard losing her. Yeah. Right. I can still remember just like that heavy heaving, sobbing. I told myself when I'm alone, I'm going to let myself cry as much as possible. And that went on for a month or two. Every time I was alone, that kind of crying, I know that if I let myself do that, I'll move through it. I've had enough therapy to know that. But I think especially for dogs, because I've had dogs and cats. And when I lost my cats, it was awful. I'm not minimizing that. But dogs are so dependent on us. They're so needy, right? They can't do anything without us. And I think that pulls more of like a paternal or maternal part of us. We feel kind of responsible for them. So the bond can be just a little bit different than it is with other animals for most people, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've shared on our podcast how anxious Stanley is.
Yeah.
And I do really feel like that's part of his early upbringing. We didn't get him till he was 8 months. So a little bit later than, but we had lost our other Springer pretty suddenly. And, I didn't last long. And my family knows this. Like, I don't last long without a dog. Yeah. So I was like on the search for a Springer. And he was, of course, the runt and the last one in the litter.
Aww.
And as I figured out more and more of his history, you know, it's like complex trauma, complex trauma. But you know, he was like he was owned by a breeder who like showed dogs for a living, and so he was just kenneled with like 15, 20 dogs. Yeah. And so like he eats like he's never going to eat again.
Right.
And he still does that to this day. Yeah. But he's just awful alone. He's awesome when someone's here, and he's awful alone.
He never had a long time. He doesn't know how to deal with it.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I think he's getting better, but you know, he is 4.5.
Yeah. Oh, like, yeah.
We've had him for 4.5 years.
There's a whole trend on TikTok too, where it says, I got a dog to help with my anxiety. And then here's my anxious dog. I have a dog who's more anxious than me.
He's so anxious. Like, I was like, I've nailed down routines. I've nailed down high quality food. I've nailed down predictability. I mean, I've nailed down all the things, right? I've modified the environment. Yeah. And now it's like, I'm just like, how about a Xanax? Like, I don't know. Like, you know, just take the edge off for the baby.
But it brings for those of you who have pets or are thinking about getting pets. I mean, like for me, I could rescue, but it's hard to find a hypoallergenic rescue dog. I mean, I'd love to get a pit bull. I love pit bulls, but I'm definitely allergic to them. And there's a ton of them. But some people actually do need to buy dogs or get them from a breeder, right? So purebred dogs, keep in mind, those have been selectively bred also for a really long time for specific characteristics. Yeah. So the aforementioned border collie that I mentioned, this is not an apartment dog. This is a dog that has to be working almost all day, all the time. Someone I work with, they have a Boston Terrier, and terriers in general are working dogs. They have very specific tasks. They're kind of spazzy. And I say that in a loving way. They're like, what do I do now? That's what I mean by that. He said that dog they went to a dog park, and that dog ran so much because she was so excited to run with the other dogs. She got to the point where her legs were giving out on her. Her muscles had no more energy, and she still couldn't. They had to pick her up and carry her out, or she would have, God knows what she would have done. And I was like, that's a terrier. Yeah. So when people say to me, oh, I'm gone a lot and I'm going to get this, I'm going to get a terrier. And I'm like, oh God, please don't do that. So if you're going to get the reason I brought this up is you mentioned Stanley, who's a purebred, you have to look into that's temperament, right?
Yeah.
So yes, he had all these experiences, but also spaniels are working dogs, and those dogs tend to be a little more what we'd say high strung, right? And they get bored easily. So like when you're gone and there isn't someone there to, sort of, he knows he's okay. So some breeds will come with that inherently, and then within the breeds, you'll always have some that are like super chill or some that are super hyper. But you need to do your research if you need to get a purebred dog for whatever reason you're doing that, because they have certain.
Yeah, I agreed, and I mean that goes back to something that we talk about a lot, which is self-awareness, right? Like, what do you need, and what are you able to provide? What are you able to give? Yeah. And I find like that entry point, like that cat entry point for a lot of my clients, it makes having a pet really attainable and accessible to them because it's a lot easier to have a cat. Yeah. That to me is so great because there's not really a day that goes by where we don't talk about someone's animal. Or the animal inevitably shows up in session. Like, because like if we're doing telehealth, cats always show, dogs always show to session.
Yeah.
They love it. Like, I've got like tails and faces and, blocking cameras, and it's hilarious. Like
I love seeing that. I'm like, they're like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm not, no, leave them there. I'm loving that.
I know, it's awesome. It's so good. Mm-hmm. But, this is one of the things of like, what makes your habitat, where you can thrive, where you can rest and recover, where you can recoup, all of those things. And, like I said, I remind myself when Stanley has opened up all the cabinets, and I now have to put child locks back on them because I don't have a toddler. Yeah. But I do have a very smart, persistent dog. Who likes to do those things when that's how he likes to deal with his energy when we're gone. Is he likes to get into cabinets. He may not Like he likes to get into our Tupperware cabinet and just toss all the Tupperware onto the ground. Like I should take a picture of it. And it's like a rocker on a binge in a hotel room, and they just like thrash the room. And I come home and I'm like, what the is this?
I could just see him throwing Tupperware.
No, he just throws Tupperware around. Like,
Oh,
and like the lids might break only because he's tossed it, but not because he's chewed it, right? And so, you know, but then, you know, I'm snuggling and he helps me in so many different ways that I'm like, it's a net like
net positive.
You know, it's a net positive. And so I tend to, that's been a really nice lesson for me in life in general. You know, like
when we got Ella, we got her, she was a Maltese poodle mix. And that was kind of by accident. I had gone to this place to look at a Havanese because those are supposed to be hypoallergenic as well. And that Havanese in there was just dominating all the other dogs. And, you know, I'm like, I don't want to dominate. And then it went up to Ella and dominated her for a little bit. And then she just got to the point where she's like, ah! And then he backed away and then she calmed down again. And so we ended up getting her. And Maltese are bred for royalty in Malta to sit on people's laps. And that ended up being perfect. I mean, poodles do that too. They're a little more active, but that was her mission in life, was to snuggle us. So that I realized that's what we loved. I mean, that's sort of what we need. We need that little baby. So yeah, do your research. And even if you're going to get a mixed breed dog, if they have these DNA tests you can do now. Like if you've gotten a mixed breed dog, if you've done a rescue, you swab the inside of their cheek and then you send it off and they'll tell you what the composition is. And some you can tell like what the dominant breed is, but some have been real surprises because we always assume that both parents are purebreds, but they could be Heinz 57 as well. And then you can find out what the dominant breed is. And sometimes that can help a little bit with knowing what the temperament is. Sort of
it's like that. What is that for humans? That Ancestry?
It's like I have that. Ancestry.com or 23andMe is the
23andMe.
Yeah, I have that for dogs now.
I wanted to do that. I wanted to give that as a gift to my mother, but then I found out that they use the information from your DNA for like bigger things and other things, and I was like,
Oh, I give permission to do that because I'm like, go for it. I'll write out. Every once in a while they'll question and say, "Do you have any new medical things?" I'm like, "Yes, actually, I do." It contributes to a database that helps research. So, but anyway, I don't know what they're doing with the doggy DNA. What things they're up to with that, but yeah, it's interesting. There's all kinds of stuff now that you can do with pets that you couldn't do before. I've had a client that has had hamsters, and the one bad thing about pets is they just don't live long enough. We tend to outlive them unless you get a parrot or a tortoise. You know, they live forever. But he sort of like people get into Legos. He had those little Habitrail things. He had one room where it was so cool. This was before video conferencing, but he brought pictures to show me. And he had enough of them. He was very sad when he would lose one, but he'd always have 5 or 6 of them. And they lived in this room that was like 10 by 10 that had these massive Habitrails. And he just loved going in there and watching them. He was I think he might have been autistic. But loving watching, and I thought that would be so cool. I would hate to maintain that, but I would totally go to someone's house and just watch those hamsters.
That's exactly where my mind went. I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Who's
one of the
cleaning?
most viral sites on TikTok that's live all the time has 4 of these open wheels that they just spin on. And you'll see one running and then another one will jump on there. And every once in a while they'll hit each other and they go flying off. And people watch it all the time. I watch it all the time.
Have you seen there's these other videos where they make mini food for hamsters and then they give it to them? Yeah. I am fascinated by those things. Like I don't know why, but even like the little frying pan is like a tiny little like.
I think that's that animal thing that's that fantasy of like the ratatouille, right? Those little animals.
Oh, the ratatouille, yeah.
Totally. I think that we as neurodiverse folks really get into those things. And like haven't mentioned it, but people who do furries that dress up.
Oh yeah.
As furries. I know an awful lot of people who are neurodiverse that are in the furry crowd too. So I think that there's something that fulfills and helps us with. People really get into it. Right? Yeah.
I just saw a sign or a frame sign for your house and it says, "We speak our dog's thoughts here."
Nah.
And I
We had a whole voice
I was
for
like,
Ella. We still do.
oh
it.
yeah, we have a voice for
Yeah.
Stanley as well.
Yeah,
It usually involves judgment and F-bombs and an English accent.
That was great. No, Ella kind of would have like if you run into something, and like my wife would say, "Oh, you're okay?" I'll go, "I'm okay." She has like a little bit of a plug nose. "I'm okay, Mama." Yeah.
I mean, for those of you, if you're listening to this and you feel so inclined,
Yeah.
tell us what your animal is.
Yeah,
Or you don't have to be an animal lover. I mean, like, it's fine.
You can be an
But,
animal
like,
lover and not have an animal and just tell us what you do.
You could just watch dog Instagram videos
Yep.
or TikTok videos. Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, something populated my feed, which was like just like mommy otters hugging their babies.
Oh my God,
I don't know
cute.
why that started to come. I don't even know.
There's been research that shows watching those images gives us an oxytocin rush, and that's
It's
a
so
calming chemical, neurochemical.
sweet.
Yeah, we love that.
Or those like really fluffy puppies, like that like are so round and they don't know and they just roll off steps.
They fall off the steps.
They fall and roll off steps.
Yeah.
I mean, like things like that. Like I could watch for a very long time.
Finally found those are Tibetan Mastiff puppies. And those dogs get
They're
enormous,
fluffy.
but those are those little teeny Tibetan Mastiff puppies.
They literally look like little fluff balls.
Yeah, and when they get big,
puppies,
they look like giant fluff balls. They look like giant maned lions. They're huge, so cool.
Well, they're
livestock
mastiffs.
guardians. Yeah. Big.
Wow.
So go on if you have pets. Let us know if you go on sites to just look at pets all day. Let us know if you do that, and let us know if this helps kind of normalize your pet fetish, if you will. I shouldn't say fetish because that has a
sexual connotation
with it.
Yeah.
Your petism that you love.
Yeah, like your love of your animal and and maybe what your animal does for you if you have them.
Share a picture. We'd love to see pictures.
I know, they're so sweet. Anyway,
Yeah.
All right, Marvels. We will see you in the next episode. As Dana says, be good to you.
Bye, everybody.